Thank you guys so much for having me again.
Of course, yes.
A blast and an upfront credit, because I believe credit where credit is due, to my friend Adonis at Ogilvy, who is my partner in crime on this work and also this journey that we've been on at Mondelez over the last 5 years. And I want to make sure that he gets the credit up front because he's been my co-conspirator to really transform a company. If you would look back 5, 6 years ago, you would see Mondelez is in kind of a spotty creative performance. Some breakout examples that people will remember. People will still come up to me and talk to me about Oreo Dunk in the Dark, particularly every year at Super Bowl. I become a very popular interview. Bell-Dent Twins, Cadbury Gorilla. But there were some really dark years in there where we lost touch with creativity. And when I came into the company, I was coming out of a lot of cost-cutting years, ZBB, a lot of focus on just doing the basics. And one of the first things was reinstalling what the importance of creativity was and who we were going to be. And I'm proud to say now I wake up today, according to WARC, we're in the top 10 in both creative effectiveness, creative excellence. We're ranked by Kantar as #1 in creative effectiveness. And that doesn't just happen. That's a collaboration between agencies and a marketer having a common dream. And we're going to talk about what's that transformation and also the very important role that agencies play in making that happen. Because throughout all of our careers, every client will lose its way. But the great clients, the great partnerships find their way back and they get clear on what they're ultimately trying to do in creativity. This is really a question that I think about a lot. In 2014, buried deep within an RFP from Brown-Forman was a simple question to a media agency, and it tormented me for weeks. I had it written on the board. It was like, creativity, what is it? And it's sometimes hard to define and really put your finger on it. Everyone will show, oh, Webster says it's this or it's that. We can get into an I&A discussion, but I like to think about it this way. Written up on the board one day, we just put what makes it, what breaks it. We've all been in those rooms, those teams, where there was true creative energy, a virtuous cycle of continuing great work that builds and builds and builds as expectations get higher and you go higher and higher. And we've also been on brands where we've lost our way. Things break it. And so over the last few years, I've spent a lot of time thinking about frameworks, what really matters, what doesn't. And we've kind of like crafted out like what some of those big buckets are. You know, you need to have vision, you need to have the right culture. Do you have the right people on the agency side at marketers? Do you have process? And yes, the tools matter. And so these are kind of 12 things that on an annual basis we assess ourselves on. I send an email out to all of our agency partners, ask them what they think on a scale of 1 to 5, how we do on all these dimensions. And I ask our own marketers, our top 50, hey, what do you think, back and forth? And we start to get a sense of a score. Where are we at? Where have we made progress? Where do we have work to do? And this is a journey I think every client should go on and do in partnership with their agency because you're going on this journey together. A marketer can't do this alone, and no agency can will it upon their client to be better. But no matter where you go in this, what I find, I always come back to one thing, and it's always the creating a really strong creative ambition. One of the things that I believe in, like the core of my soul and all the way down to itty bitty little parts of my tippy toes, is that agencies forever change the clients they work on. Written all over the history of Mondelez is every agency we've worked on. Every agency who's worked with us has changed us in some meaningful way. The best ones are when it's intentional, it's declared. Together, you're going to help me build greater bravery. I work with some agencies who help me think about my digital transformation. Some agencies have helped me come to appreciate brand foundations and what are the core building blocks of a product truth. But every agency has had an impact on their clients in some way. And I think it's very important to declare that. How will you forever change the clients you work with? Or if you're a client, what will you work on together with your agency? Where will their fingerprints be all over you? And when we talk about a creative ambition, I think it's important to talk about exactly what that is, because people will put a lot of different things to it. It lives at this very important intersection of a vision and a goal. And its purpose is to galvanize, motivate, and really mobilize an organization towards something bigger. It can't just be to be Can Marketer of the Year or Can Agency of the Year. Exciting a little bit, but it's not going to mobilize and tell people where to go and what type of work to create. Just as every CMO needs to have a vision for how they believe brands grow, you need to have a vision for the type of creative that you're going to care about. What do you want your work to look like? I think all of us probably over the Super Bowl has had the privilege to be on the jury for the Super Clio, and it was nice to see Nike's work. It immediately struck me as Nike. Anheuser-Busch and its Clydesdale, immediately recognizable Nike. Apple does a good job of that. Hopefully you see that in Oreo's work. You see that little wink and a smile, which is me staring back at you. But you need something that pushes you all towards. And I've seen a lot of different articulations. There's not one that's right. When I started at Mondelez, I had a simple one, which should have been like, get rid of the crap. It was drain the swamp, raise the floor, stop that bad things. What happened there? We wrote it out a little differently. It was remarkable brand experiences, delivered with empathy, and operationalized by data and technology. So that's what we had. And so there were kind of three parts to that. There was an ambition for a remarkable brand experience, and we go on to have slides that talk about that. We talked about delivered with empathy. I wanted you, when you saw our work, to feel something. You had to feel something. It could have been joy, it could have been sadness, but I needed you to feel things. And I think before that, you didn't feel things when you saw our work. But hopefully when you watch an ad like Mum's Birthday from Cadbury and VCCP, you feel something. Hopefully you see the childlike delight when you watch an Oreo ad. And then, operationalized by data and technology was a nod to a lot of the transformation work we had to do. But there was a vision for that. But that was my vision. And I think everyone needs to have a vision, and you'll also see where we're kind of evolving and how we're kind of changing and thinking about this. What makes a good creative ambition? Shoots for the moon. No one woke up and said, my creative ambition is to be very average today. That'd be nice. I want to have really basic ads. It'd be super fun. It's got to be measurable. So how are we going to know if we achieve this? It has to be time-bound. I want to do something by a certain period of time. And ultimately, it's motivating. When I read that, I go, I want to be a part of that. This is going to be something you're going to talk about to every single marketing director you recruit. Every time you put someone on that account, our vision with them is to do this. We're in it to prove and in it to win. And I think, like I said, great agency client partnerships all have this. All great CMOs I talk to, it's usually the first question, like, what's your ambition? And I look to see all of these things. There are many companies I admire out there, and they have ones that speak to this. Diageo, Nestle, Burger King, Coca-Cola, SC Johnson. I've ripped off ideas from all of them and had the privilege to talk to many of their CMOs and talk about their creative journeys. I was always impressed with Diageo and their attention to craft and detail. They, what was creativity with precision, creative ideas, surgically deployed. Look at how they build that Guinness harp. The attention they put in that is absolutely outstanding. The detail, the craft, every single ad, every single time. Nestle, I think my friend has built this culture that's very infectious about the importance of creativity. Burger King wants to ultimately create the best work in the world and have a good time while doing it. And I think it comes through in that relationship that they've had with their agencies. Coca-Cola, since we're here in Atlanta, is worth talking about in terms of just driving weekly plus reach, their obsession on weekly plus reach. Anytime I talk to them, how am I driving weekly plus? How am I driving weekly plus? How am I driving that? And how do I do that at massive scale? And S.C. Johnson, when Ann Majorki was the CMO there, was a really great example of just rebuilding brand foundations and proof that you could do work in very core CPG categories. And it wasn't just going to be tech and those that made it happen. So we've been playing around with ours. I kind of told you where we had been, and it's lived its purpose. Over time, we've improved our creative scores a lot. We're now consistently in the top 10. But there's something truly lacking about it, to be honest. The system we set up, as I said, was really built about raising the floor. And so I'll give you a peek in terms of what we're thinking about where to go. More so you have an example of what I hope every client and agency has in this world. I think every client and agency has the right to great work. And I think an ambition's a gateway here. And so this is how we're contracting with our agencies about the work we want and where we ultimately want to go. So if you had to put it on there, our kind of charge is how we want to go from great to iconic. We do really great work today. We don't have anything that's bad. We've gotten rid of a lot of the D's and C's. There were a few F's in there. I did a few of those F's. But we don't have as many A's as we'd want. And I think there's a bravery lacking in some of the things that we do. If we're being totally honest with ourselves and looking at ourselves in the mirror, there's a lack of bravery. And so we wanted to put out there that, hey, we think we're great. We think there's another gear, and we want to go towards being iconic. But if you're going to say that, and like in its simple statement, go from great to iconic. Simple statement, not all that, ooh, wow, like amazing. But I think it's simple, it's clear, and I can explain it to marketers in 90 plus countries, which is very important when you have a lot of ESL marketers, because my previous version did not translate well everywhere. And I learned that the hard way when I got work back from the markets and like, this is what you wanted, right? I'm like, no, it wasn't. Here we go.
Boy is an icon, recognized instantly, deeply revered, and representative of so much more than the space they were born into. Icons transcend borders, cultures, and limits. Icons of film, icons of music, icons of history. Icons change minds, change dreams, change lives, just as brands do. Born from unique truths, iconic brands are architects of our cultural landscape, builders of our collective imagination, interweaving with people's lives, capturing hearts and minds. Today's icons are not idols worshipped by people, they're talismans that people trust to make their lives better. Iconic brands have the power to change minds, change categories, and change the world. But that power isn't easily given, it's hard earned. Iconic brands don't just sell products, they mark the memories we cherish most. They listen, they empathize, they innovate. They build worlds where we belong, to win a larger share of the future for all of us. It's time to stretch further and aim higher, to blaze new trails, to compete with the immortals. It's time to go from great to iconic.
And then all of these things have to have a nice little from too. You should have one of these that just kind of talks about where you're at and where you're ultimately going. This is kind of how we talk about Mondelez. There are pillars against each and every one of these. And there's videos that go against them, and I could play them all, but we're not going to have the time on it today. But I think all of it is just being really clear about what matters to you, how you think about it, how you're going to codify it, and how you're going to bring it together. The artifacts in here are meant to be illustrative, but this is kind of speaks to like what we believe in. We want work that is representative, recognizable, and revered, and we think there's a ratio of those things. Recognizable is worth 1x, revered's worth twice x, and representative is verse 4. And this kind of speaks to probably why we're stuck in great and not all the way, because we don't do that whole representative thing as well as we should. There's a greater opportunity just for us to play and live in culture, and we're going to have bravery to kind of do that. And behind each and every one of those, we have videos that codifies exactly what we want, simple principles, Again, there's a video for each and every one of these. I won't bore you with them all. I'll show one.
Makes your mark. Want your brand to stand out and be recognizable? It's all about harnessing the power of symbols and patterns. Symbols are your brand's visual shorthand. Think McDonald's arches or Toblerone's triangle shape. Instantly recognizable and distinctive. They tell your story at a glance. Patterns are recurring themes that create a sense of consistency and familiarity.
You're not you when you're hungry.
Think Apple.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
Or Oreo's twist, lick and dunk. They build recognition and make your brand unforgettable. By using symbols and patterns unexpectedly, you surprise and delight your audience by adding special meaning to the familiar. Embrace the power of symbols and patterns. Make your brand truly iconic.
Behind every one of these, there's video. Again, we're not going to go through all of them. But ultimately, you kind of start to codify exactly where you're at. At the end of this, like, these are the takeaways I want to leave. One is, I want you to remember clients are forever transformed by their agency partners. Sometimes when we live in that moment, we don't realize what a huge power we have to change the trajectory of a company and how they behave. But a single person in an agency, and certainly an entire agency, has that impact. I have seen my agencies push me onto different paths. The work we do in AI is just one example of one powerful voice entirely shifting how we focused in one day. Me taking all the work I had done on first-party data and throwing it in the trash 16 months ago, never to be seen by anybody, because of one powerful individual and what their vision was for us. Two, I think it's important to remember creativity is a critical driver for your business. Sometimes we lose sight of that, but you always have got to find your road back to your way. You've got to find your way back. And the question will be is, what is your version of creativity? Because it will be different. So some of the most powerful experiences I have as a client is when I sit and have debates with my peers as meet at L'Oreal, Nolo, Dave, just talking about what their vision is and why I believe in what I do. My vision's around personalized storytelling, and I'm on a journey from great to iconic. Others focus on experiences. Others believe that full funnel's the way to do it. Others think that that's the way that creativity should look. What's important is you're clear and you codify it and you install a culture around that that's truly infectious. And last, I think a creative ambition is something everyone should have and have codified. It motivates and mobilizes an organization and creates the culture and a vision for where you want to go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, John. The first question that we have, you mentioned it's possible to lose your focus on creativity. And you also said that when you started at Mondelez, you kind of realized that some of that was lost. What are some of the things that make that stand out for you, that you can recognize that when sometimes you're in the midst of it and feel like you're doing an amazing job?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll realize it because people won't be clear on what type of work they want to do. The exercise that I do on a regular basis, I sit down and look at iconic work with my agency and talk about the work we want to create in the world. It's really a powerful conversation. Like, go look at a reel of some of the best work and evaluate it. Leo Burnett Agency was famous for doing this. They'd get all the creative directors in a room once a year, they'd judge it, and they'd have all the creative directors would have a conversation. But that's a conversation in agency. When was the last time you sat down with a client, watched a reel of work? And it sometimes helps when it's not your work. You know, it's a lot easier when we're talking about someone else's work because it's not my baby, it's not your baby. Like, let's look at other people's work. Different agency, different client. I like to stay somewhat in the category so that there's some balance to it, and I find that. I think the other thing is there's just not honest exchange. You know what I mean? People don't know what's going on. You'll know you're not there because you're not on the same page. Or the other way you'll know is there will be a crisis that comes up and you don't call your agency first. Broken. Shit's broken. The second you as a client have a big problem and you don't call you have one phone call. All right? You have one phone call. Usually I call my wife first, but it'll be right after that. I call an agency. And if I'm not calling an agency about the problem, then something's broken. Like, you call someone else. If you call another client, broken. You call Google, broken. You call someone else to solve your problems, like, because there's only one person in this world. It always drives me nuts. Other clients will call me all the time, be like, John, I have this problem. I want your perspective. And I'm like, well, what did your agency tell you? Oh, I didn't ask him. Why do you ask me? I don't care if you succeed or fail. Your agency does. They really care about you, your business, your career, but you call me. Like, why? I like you, but I don't love you. Your agency loves you. They need you. Like, and I think that's powerful. And the same thing on the agency side. When you have a crisis or a big win or a moment, like, are you clear? And just ask yourself, are you clear on how you're forever changing a client? And would they give the same answer? You know, I think there are times, like, there's amazing work that's been done. Like, Heineken is a great example of creating new generations of creative storytelling. And I saw a media agency drive that. I've seen Wyden Kennedy drive. I've seen all sorts of agencies, big, small, and agencies that I've fired or let go, like, have positively changed me for the good. And I still go back to those moments. And that's how you'll know if it was there, and then you'll know when it lose it. But I think it's clear, like, what makes it, what breaks it. It's a very powerful exercise to write it out.
Great advice. Thanks so much, John.